Alright, we got a different type of video today. Just going on a little bit of a rant that I've probably should have done a few months ago, but anyway, uh, this course that obviously I've been doing on my channel before earlier for a few months. I've made a few videos on papers for this course, but I'm going to explain why it sucks. So, firstly, let's look at the purposes for this course. What are the purposes of this course existing? Firstly, it's gonna if you're good at maths or if you're interested in maths, it's gonna be a fun challenge that's over the higher GCSE higher course, and also it's gonna help you prepare for A level maths. But it kind of just fails at both of these. Like it doesn't do anything right, and it's not that difficult to fix. It's not that difficult to do either, but they just completely fail. So firstly, let's talk about some things that I actually do like about the course. Firstly, it's all pure. There's no statistics. There's no they don't try and introduce mechanics to you like unnecessarily. They don't try and teach you any statistics. That's what GCSE statistics is for. That's good. It's an easier alternative. That's what it's supposed to be, I think, to the other ones because EdXL and OCR, additional maths, have just basically they're just mini A level courses at that point. Like they use logarithms, integration, all this other stuff that they introduce to you. Like that, it's kind of just too much for a GCSE, and also it tries to include interesting content that will get people interested about A level or just further maths in general. But it completely fails at this, and I'll explain this in a minute. So I've created just a bullet point list on all the different reasons why this course just sucks. So firstly, boring GCSE maths. So this is literally you. I'm going to cycle through a few questions. Why is this in our exam? So like again, there should definitely be some questions GCSE content since it isn't a very big spec, which is a good thing. It's not supposed to be a really big spec, like the extra content for the course. But there shouldn't be so many questions about just GCSE content, and also some of them are just so easy when they shouldn't be there. They should be interesting questions on new content or interesting questions about old GCSE content. Like this. This is just Pythagoras twice. Why is this here? This is the last question on a further maths paper, which is something that's come up on a previous GCSE paper for less marks and also for further back in the paper. So why it's a last question on a further maths paper is I don't know. Um, this is question 18. It's 4 marks. This is further and also more marks than it would be in a normal GCSE paper. Like algebraic fractions, completely waste of time. Why are we doing this? Question 17. That's also at the end of a paper. Circle theorems. This is literally just using two different circle theorems. It's really not that difficult. Again, question 16, 4 marks. And then this, end off this point with this absolute, like, stinker of a question. Why? Why are we doing this? What are we doing here? Question 14, we're rearranging a completing square formula to solve. Like, this is just absolutely abysmal from the examiners. Anyway, next point. So, as I explained earlier, the point is that it's supposed to make you interested about A level, but it doesn't even do that. So, firstly, this is my main point here. It makes you learn the entirety of A level year 1 differentiation, except why it actually works and the formula for why it actually works. I guess they did this because, firstly, because the limits are quite, like, they're quite new, but also, they also do limits in the content. But also the proofs are quite boring. You have to do like a lot of long stuff to prove like I don't know, x squared differentiates to 2x. But it's so useful to know what it actually is because you're kind of just, oh, I'm going to move the power down because it does, because I can, and I'm going to make it equal 0 because that's how you make a stationary point. Like this doesn't actually explain any of this. It just tells you to do what it tells you to do, and you don't actually understand what's going on. Next, same with the other big module in this course, trig. It doesn't explain to you why the identities work. It just tells you, oh, these two identities, do what you can with them. Like it doesn't actually explain how they work. Like, and there's multiple ways of proving that these identities exist, and they don't make you do it. I get they technically it's not even necessary to do this in A level, but most like any higher than terrible A level teacher will tell you how the identities work, and and they'll try and help make you understand it because it's quite necessary to be able to do the identities, like and be able to understand how the questions work. Like this is just another nitpicky thing. When you do limiting values of sequences, you don't use the limit symbol. It's such a minuscule thing that they do in A level. Instead of saying, oh, lim x approaches infinity, they say, what is the limiting value as x approaches infinity? That there's no reason to do that. It doesn't make you use n choose r or explain how you approximate values, two incredibly easy things that they could do that makes binomial expansion more boring, and also like there's less in it as well. It's just a lose-lose. And it also doesn't make you use domain and range to show like where asymptotes are or something like that. And also, product rule for counting I included here just because I hate it, but I'll go into that later. And also not explaining why factor theorem works, like why when you substitute something minus, it gives you that as a factor, because when you set it equal to 0, you're going to rearrange it. But again, you don't really do that in A level either, but to be a decent mathematician, which is what A level is supposed to do, they will explain that to you. Alright, next points, we have the difficulty. This is another big thing about the course that I really don't like. These are the grade boundaries for the 2025 exam. These are actually lower, like a couple marks lower than usual. And it is 88% for a 9, which is ridiculous for an additional maths course. Like, I don't mind if it's GCSE or A level, if they're making the grade boundaries higher, because that's the main course that you do to determine how good you are at maths. But for a course like this, it's just trying to challenge you. It's the whole point of it is a challenge. So why do we need to focus so much on accuracy instead of focusing on being able to do really difficult questions? Like, for example, there are other maths courses out here. Senior Maths Challenge Gold, you need like 60% to be able to do that. I know the marking system's different, but still, my point still stands. Advanced Extension Award, you need like 65%. That Advanced Extension Award is similar to this, except there's no new content, but it gives you more challenging questions, but with the A-level content instead of the GCSE content. 65% is the highest grade. Why is it 88%? Even A-level, normal, this is the highest it's ever been, 86% for an A-star, and it's still lower than a low year for GCSE further maths. An extra maths course, like, are we serious? Alright, next point. This is kind of a smaller point, but it just makes A-level seem... It just completely puts a false image up for what A-level is. So, for example, we'll look at like this question. If anyone that's done GCSE further maths has seen some variation of this question before, it's like a big long question where you have to differentiate, substitute all the values in. It's usually non-calculator, so it's just even longer. Stuff like this, just work out dy by dx. This barely comes up on A-level, and if it does, then it'll be like a 2-mark question with an easy function and not something boring like this. This horrible, I've explained this earlier with the Pascal's triangle. You don't even get to do the choose function. It's just Pascal's triangle. And yeah, I just wrote stuff there if you want to read it, but it's just kind of annoying that they don't show you any of the interesting questions that they do in A-level, but they just give you the same stuff every single time. Like these questions, I guarantee a variation of what these 3 questions has come up every single year in further maths. And this is like the main part. This is the main bit that I'll be complaining about. So the content is just completely nonsensical. It does not help you with A-level whatsoever. That's my main kind of idea here. Firstly, just the entire concept of doing matrices. I get that they're an interesting topic, but why? Why are we doing them? It's so conceptual, and it's like, I don't know if polarizing is like what the right word, but it's such a new thing, like the fact that matrices exist, but it's just so weird to understand for like the average, I don't know, grade 7 or 8 math student trying to introduce matrices. But also, but you will need to do this to do A level, right? I mean, matrices are, if matrices are in GCSE further maths, then surely they're in A level maths. No, they're not. It's literally just, matrices aren't even in A-level maths, they're in A-level further maths, which, yeah, some people will be doing. But why are we introducing content that's in A-level further maths and not in A-level maths? Why are we doing that? And that applies to a lot of the content later on as well that I'll be talking about. So I just don't understand why matrices are in. And also, they don't understand anything about, like, why the matrices work, why it's, like, the, like, cos and sine in the matrices, that's what describes the matrix rotations. Like, they just kind of make you draw the unit square and then rotate it and do whatever with it. And if you don't even, like, most of the stuff, apart from, like, the identity matrix and multiplying 2x2 matrices, you don't do anything that you'd even be doing in further maths. You don't do the determinant, you don't do inverse. So if you really want to go into matrices, then you have to do stuff like that, but they're just kind of like drip feeding you like tiny amounts of matrixy content for no reason. All right, next. There's also good content that could replace matrices. Like, I don't know why they don't do it. There's so much more content. I might make a video later on explaining how to actually fix this content list. And here, I've already explained the problems with trigger differentiation, the fact that it doesn't explain how it works. Like, I like the idea of having trigger. They're two very important things. I think they definitely should be in the content, but I don't think the trigger identity proofs should have, like, as big of an... I think there should be, like, solving questions where you have to find all the values of theta, but there shouldn't be all the questions where you have to, like, change all the trigger identities, because it's just... It's such a big step up in difficulty from everything else in the course. But anyway, let's go through the list of all the other like micro pieces of content in the course and see how useful they are to either enjoy maths or to help in A-level. Product rule of accounting, completely useless. It barely comes up until you get to like further pure 2, which is ridiculously late. You definitely don't do this in A-level, I don't think. And it's so boring. It's not fun at all. It's basically stats as well. It's not even really pure. Binomial expansion, I've already talked about this. Let me use n-choose-r. Like, yeah, you can use it, but and also make the questions. Don't make us expand like 7x plus a quarter to the power of 8. Like, don't make us do that. Just make us do the first few terms, or make us approximate a value, or something like that. Factor theorem and algebraic division, this is fair enough. This is something that is actually quite useful. And it's like a quite easy thing that you can just throw in. Piecewise function, why are we doing this? This is just, why is this even a separate topic? This is just such an obvious thing that you should be able to just teach in A-level. You shouldn't have to do a topic on this in further maths. It's so simple, yet such a waste of time to do in a course like this. Three-way simultaneous equations, this is probably my most like angry thing about this entire thing. The only way that three-way simultaneous equations are introduced, they're not in A-level maths at all. As I explained, it links to the previous point. It's not in A-level maths. And also, you do them in A-level further maths. That's not even how you do them most of the time. You use matrices to solve them. You either find the inverse or there's a different way to do it, but you use matrices to solve three-way simultaneous equations. You don't use the weird method that you get taught in further maths. Like, why are we including this? Limiting value of sequence, again, why? It's not in A-level. The only limits you do in A-level are first principles, which should be in further maths, and they don't even use the limit symbol here to help you with that. So even if you're doing like A-level further maths when you're doing integrals of values of infinity or limits to infinity, it still doesn't help because it doesn't actually help you realize what a limit is. It just tells you what the limiting value of a sequence is. Circles, this is fair enough. It's quite boring, but they're quite like coordinate geometry. Circles is quite useful. Trig ratio, so this is something that it falls under trig, but the thing they make you do here is they tell you if it's like an obtuse angle and make you realize if it's negative or positive for an extra mark, which is like, that never comes up in A-level. That doesn't happen. And yeah, it could, but it's not something that gets explicitly taught in A-level. And then that's it. That is my rant about this course. I will, if this video gets any amount of views, I'll make a video like trying to figure out an actually good course list and actually cool exam questions you can make for this course. But anyway, thank you for listening to my rant. I will see you for the next week Basvic video. I think that will be next week, hopefully. See ya.